Welcome to the MD is Bad podcast, where the title is misleading and the fans can't hear me. I figured I had some extra time and I don't feel like editing an entire brand new video to cover all of this, so what better way to tackle IMDb, which are very trustworthy, murder drones user reviews than in the form of a podcast. So we are going to go through, I'm going to read off some of my favorite reviews that I've found for the show. For anybody who isn't aware, Murder Drones is an indie animated show written by and directed by Liam Vickers, produced by Glitch Productions LLC. They're an indie animated studio that is currently working with Netflix and Amazon to produce pretty incredible, really YouTube artist, animator inspired and produced and backed up projects. I don't know if that's the best way to explain it, but basically a bunch of really talented, really devoted indie animators that are popular on social media got together with Glitch Productions and they're like, you know what? We're going to do it ourselves. And they did. Murder Drones is not the first indie animated project out there, and it certainly is not the last, but it really did break new ground. I truly believe that if not for the success of Murder Drones, the Amazing Digital Circus and the Gaslight District, and even the stuff by Vivzy Pop, Lackadaisy, all the other indie animated stuff that you've probably heard of, it wouldn't carry the same amount of weight that it carries now. So, what better way to show my appreciation for this incredible, testament to human creativity and not being a part of the system? Well, what better way to celebrate it than to talk about other people's opinions of the show and make fun of them in the process? So I figure that's what we're going to do here. Starting with, we're just going to sort through all of them. I have 100 reviews right in front of me. We're probably not going to go through every single word of every single one of them, but I would like to highlight some of my favorites. At the very top of the list from Valenpimbihov. What a username. 10 out of 10 stars, absolutely fantastic. This individual says, Murder Drones scratches a unique itch of mine. It combines several genres to create a dark horror sci-fi with much comedy and amazing attention to detail, which left me at the edge of my seat, eager for more. Are we watching the same show here? I mean, Murder Drones is great, don't get me wrong, and it definitely has some cliffhanger moments, but really at the edge of your seat? I mean, have you seen Dungeon Flippers? Anyway, next review here, we've got Hassanema 55714, 3 out of 10 stars, overrated. Forced myself to watch the entire show. Well, there's your problem there. After genuinely giving it a chance, the show is overrated. Giving it 6 stars and above is criminal. You are going to jail, according to Hassanema 55714, if you think this is a 6 or above show out of 10. The voice acting, this person says, hurts my ears. The comedy targets a specific group and makes it so unbearable for anyone else to get into it. And the plot isn't serious. Well, my friend, I think I know what your problem is. This show was specifically created, and the creators of Glitch LLC have backed this up. Murder Drones is a show specifically for teenagers, anywhere from, we'll say, 12, 13, up to about the 16, 17 age range. That is the specific demographic. It's not young adult. If you're familiar with the book novel industry, young adult can mean the most explicit and violent content you've ever seen in your life, or read, I should say, in your life. That is not what this show is. Although this show definitely has some darker moments. At the end of the day, it was written for, young people. It was written for young people. And if you try and approach it the same way you would approach, I don't know, what's a sophisticated show that people like? House MD. If you try and approach Murder Drones in the same way you would approach a show like House MD, you are going to be disappointed. Now, if you go in expecting a fun time, you're going to love it. Either way, thank you so much, Hassanema, for your 3 out of 10 review. It now sits at the very top with 10 helpful thumbs ups and 27 thumb downs. So, congrats on that. 10 out of 10 says, hold my apple juice. I love it. The aesthetics are nice and I like it. I really like how the murder drones are almost like vampires. And in a world where we get bad reboots now, this is a refreshing original IP with a good story. Thank you, Cat from Looney Tunes, Sylvester Cat from Looney Tunes, whose name almost escaped me. Congratulations on your 10 out of 10 review. 32 people found it helpful, and so do I. I do appreciate that this person brought up the vampire element, as that was something I completely missed on my first viewing. Yes, the disassembly drones and Sin and a lot of elements of Murder Drones are based on vampires and vampire mythology. Some of the elements tend to get dropped towards the end of the season. Murder Drones has its issues. I will be the first person to tell you that. But it is a marvelous show. It is a marvelous work of fiction, and it really shines in just how popular the show is. So well done, Hold My Apple Juice. I completely agree. This is probably the most brutal review we are going to read as of now. This is definitely the most brutal one so far. This is a 1 out of 10. 1 out of 10 review from Bowser Bro. The review title just says, whatever. I saw the pilot and was enjoying it, this individual says, as it was fairly decent, whatever that means. Then Uzi becomes a murder drone, and any kind of enjoyment I could have had was sucked out right there in front of me. Interesting choice of words, phrasing. There is some parentheses here. Note, I'm not going to say indie company bad just for the sake of it. As much as I dislike Murder Drones, I'm not a mindless idiot who grovels on about indie company bad, popular company good. So don't expect that from me. That was in all caps, by the way. As I personally believe we need more indie companies than we do popular companies, considering the current landscape of animation as a whole. Wow, that is a lot of words to say absolutely nothing, Bowser Bro. Thank you so much for your time. I do have to say, you've got some serious issues with your spelling and your grammar here. I'm not going to pretend to know everything there is to know about that, but I will say you could do better. For starters, the word I''M, you're supposed to capitalize the I. Anyway, thank you for your very interesting 1 out of 10 review. The next review is much happier. It's a 10 out of 10 from M-77281. It has spoiler marked on it. So if you haven't seen Murder Drones yet, well, it's too late. Here we go. I loved it so much, this individual says. The plot was great. The character development, that's all it says, the character development, and it has so much potential. I really liked the ending when it showed that Uzi was glitching. There are 4 messages that appear on the error screen. Sorry, the spelling is not the best on this one. Warning, tampering detected, source, AI core null, self-destruct, and absolute solve equals false, absolute solver equals true. That's very interesting. I will admit I am not the kind of person to comb over every single little detail of the things that I like, so it's cool that you noticed that. There are a ton of hidden little secrets sprinkled all throughout Murder Drones, especially on when you switch to a character's first-person point of view. For example, did you know that in V's supposed death scene, spoiler alert, again, it's too late, but when it's from her point of view. She's walking down the hall, the character switches to her POV, her vision is noticeably a little blurry. And that's because, as we find out, as we already know by that point, V is supposed to be wearing glasses. And she hasn't been, so her vision is not as good as it could be. This also may explain why the Raptors don't have as strong an effect, or really any effect, on V, because, well, her eyes, or her whatever it is, visual receptors, can't pick up their EMP attack, or their flash attack. I hesitate to call it that because that could mean something else. I digress. Very interesting review, M- a bunch of numbers. The next one is also a 10 out of 10 review, The Update, from Quierno Diaz. Okay, that is a name. That is definitely a name. I like the show, but is it going to have updates about the series and seasons, or like something new, characters, or more updates of the series? Well, Kiera, I can say with absolute surety that Murder Drones is still getting a lot of merch drops, as well as a comic book that's coming out in the near future. Very excited to see that. So if you're hungry for more Murder Drones, then you should definitely check that stuff out. But you should also subscribe to this channel because I am currently writing, producing, and helping to make Murder Drones Season 2. It's happening here on my channel. It's currently a concept show, if you will, more of a community project where a bunch of different artists and animators and musicians and voice actors and actresses, we've all gotten together and we're just making something for the sake of making it. So if you want to check that out, make sure you're subscribed. The next review, thank you, Kiara. The next review is from Idale Him YT. 8 out of 10. Great indie animation with a few issues. This is going to be good. Murder Drones is a great combination of genres, Idale says. The dedication and soul can really be seen in the quality of the animation. While the story is solid, even with some pacing issues, it's nice to see that it's great because the team puts soul and dedication to the project. Idale, are you a Dementor from Harry Potter? Because you're talking a lot about souls here, and I'm pretty sure Dementors are those things that suck people's souls out of their body. I know it's an obscure thing to ask, but I have to know. The chances are low that this review was written by a Dementor, but they're never zero. Think about that the next time you, wake up in the middle of the night or something. Anyway, next review from Kawashiro, 10 out of 10. Great. This is all caps. I'm not going to yell, but just imagine how this looks. It's probably exactly how you're imagining it. This show was so good when I watched it. I was so invested. ! -D. It's one of the best shows that I've watched by far. Seriously thinking about getting one of the plushies because it was just that. Emphasis on that. Amazing. ... Improper use of the ... I have to say. And the triple exclamation mark at the end of your first initial sentence might be a little much. Other than that, not the worst review I've ever seen. Pretty good. I agree. It's pretty good. It's a good show. You should definitely watch it if you haven't. And if you have watched it, go and rewatch it. It's fun, especially if you try and binge the entire show all at once. Very different from my first initial viewing. I was there from episode 1 and I watched, actually, I think I came in on episode 2, but it was, I remember when the pilot first showed up on my recommended feed and the rest was history. I was hooked. And being so excited for every episode. It's like any show. You're so excited for that next episode to drop, and then it does. And it's like, well, what's going to happen next? And then the show ends, and it's really bittersweet and sad. But you know that everyone's hopefully moving on to bigger and better things. But trying to consume the entire show all at once, I know binge culture has been around for a while, but man, is it a wild ride, especially when you go from episode 1 to episode 2 to episode 3. Wow, the differences are obvious. And then you get to the camp episode later on, and it's like the quality skyrockets. It's a very interesting experience. Highly recommend. Next review from some random Thomas fan. 10 out of 10. My thoughts. I quite remember when SMG4 mostly announced this mostly around 2021, and I quite watched myself the pilot episode, and it was a bit amazing in my opinion. I mostly can't wait to watch Series 1. Wise words. Next review. Oh, another 1 out of 10 spoiler. Disappointing from Fame-Army. Okay. Warning, spoilers. I originally loved the show and its plot, but it seems they have chosen fan service over actual story. Say it ain't so! Call the fire brigade! Does anyone even know what that is? Who cares? This individual says, this is no longer the case. Now they just live forever without an explanation. Jay being killed in the first episode just for her to come back in episode 6 was just a bad move. Does that mean there are no consequences? Wait, Jay dies again in the 8th episode if I remember correctly. What even was her purpose? Well, funny you should ask that. Jump Fame Army. You sound like the kind of person that would very much so enjoy my Murder Drones. I hesitate to say my. It's the community Murder Drone Season 2 that just so happens to be on my channel. You would definitely enjoy it because Jay plays a very prominent role, and we definitely do a little bit more soul searching on that character. I do agree, though, that Murder Drones has problems. I've said it before in this podcast. There are problems with Murder Drones. It is not a perfect show. That being said, I don't think I've met many people that say it's a perfect show. I mean, some of the reviews here give the impression that it's a perfect show, but it's not. It's not a perfect show. There are very clear plot holes, but that's what makes writing season 2 so fun. And going back and rewatching season 1, you really get a sense for what they were going for. And it's very obvious where they had to make changes. I don't know all the behind the scenes. I suspect we'll never know everything that happened behind the scenes, if there was even stuff happening behind the scenes at all. And I'm not talking drama. I'm not speculating. I'm just saying that when you're getting ready to unveil something like The Amazing Digital Circus, the most popular indie animated show of all time, officially, and it's a YouTube series, that is eye-opening. That show got more views than the Super Bowl. Think about that. Think about how long the Super Bowl's been here. It's been here longer than you and I have. That is insane. So bear that in mind. Their changes obviously were made, and the show, I don't know if they were writing it episode to episode. Either way, I think we got a pretty good turnout. I understand this person's disappointment, though. They lay out a couple more plot holes. They say at the bottom, I really loved this show, but I felt incredibly disappointed by its fan service, retconning, and the overall universe favoring N. I disagree on that last point, especially. The universe doesn't seem to favor N whatsoever. If the universe favored N, he wouldn't get his head blown off every other episode just for a quick laugh. If the universe favored N, then Tessa would have actually come back and not sin in disguise. Spoilers, again. But it's just like, I don't think N had it easy at any point. And he clearly shows character development, especially in episode 8. I think N is the best character in the show, by far. I don't think I'm that controversial when I say that. He's the heart and soul of Murder Drones. Uzi is the main character, obviously. V is everybody's real favorite, don't lie. But N is the standout character. He really, I mean, not to mention the incredible performance from Michael Kovastov, however you say his name. Mr. M, he did a great job voicing N, and I can't wait to see his work in the Gaslight District going forward. That being said, thank you for that review, Jump Fame Army. Next one, 8 out of 10, really cool show, just a couple issues. The concept of the show, this comes from Cosmic Tough. Cool. The concept of the show is really cool, and it's quite enjoyable to watch. I love the characters and their designs, and their personalities are pretty well developed. The animation is also really high quality and nice looking for an indie show. A common criticism I've seen is the humor. I personally like meta humor, but I do think they went a little overboard with it. It's a shame they don't list any specific examples, because to my knowledge, there's only like a handful of meta comedic moments. Like, most of the time it's just a character doing an obvious statement or whatever. They kind of back off from it towards the final couple episodes, I think. It's definitely more plot driven, which is how a show should be. You can have those funny jokes, haha moments in the beginning of a season, but once you get towards the end, people are going to want to see those payoffs. And that's why it's really important, if you're writing a show, to have a beginning, middle, and end in mind. Because if you go in blind and you don't really have an end goal, it doesn't matter what you do, because it's just going to be spur of the moment, and people aren't going to find it as satisfying as it could be. But I don't think Murder Drones suffers from that too much. I do think the meta humor is fine. I don't have as big an issue with it as other people might, though, so I see where this individual is coming from. They close their comment or their review with, all in all, I do think it's worth watching, but only if you are really focused and prepared to comprehend things very quickly. In other words, if you, like me, fall on a certain spectrum, then maybe the show isn't for you. I disagree with that. I'm grasping at straws here. That is not what this individual is saying. But I do disagree with that. I think it's worth watching no matter who you are or what you enjoy. Even if you're someone who's not into indie animation, if you don't find the childish humor funny, that's okay, because the show is a technical marvel. It looks good, and it's fun to watch everything evolve, and it's dark. It gets very, very dark at times. As someone who enjoys darker content, dark in the sense that it's like grittier, it fits that, mid-2000s kind of vibe. I can definitely see Murder Drones being uploaded to Newgrounds back in the day. This is for you if you enjoy that kind of stuff. The next one, this is a good one. This is marked as a spoiler. This is 4 out of 10 stars from Addy Jogbane. Mediocre to decent and back to mediocre. Absolutely brutal. What does this person have to say? Thad and Lizzie felt like filler characters. I do believe that's exactly what they are. Khan should have gotten more screen time and development, this person says, but with a runtime of 20 minutes, yeah, that can't happen. The fact that Doll's death was treated as a joke in the end credits proves the show's inability to balance humor and seriousness. And there it is. This person is a Doll simp. I rest my case. They also say that the grand finale is unsatisfying. I do not understand that point of view. I genuinely don't. How can you look at everything that came before Murder Drones, look at the end, and be like, yeah, that wasn't satisfying. That wasn't good enough for me. I didn't like the final episode. I feel like they changed things too much. They retconned everything. It should have been this. That Sin shouldn't have come back. It should have been Tessa. And N and Uzi don't belong. It should have been N and V. And I hear these arguments every single day. I hear you. If you believe this, you're wrong and you're stupid and I hate you. Not actually. That was harsh. No, none of that is true. But I'm just saying this is, okay, wait. Oh, shoot. I didn't scroll all the way down. This person says, edit, sarcasm is a form of a joking matter. It shouldn't be used in criticism, which is why I removed it because I found myself, okay, now you're just explaining things that nobody cares about. We want to see your review of the show. We don't want your review of your review. I don't like this one. I don't like this one. They go on a tirade. 4 out of 10. I'm surprised this person even gave it 1. The next review, 8 out of 10. I like it. However, it is quite hard to understand. This is from Semesim. 8 out of 10. This is honestly one of the most impressive things I have seen on YouTube. The show is amazing, while it does not appeal to everyone due to its edgy humor. I don't think its edgy humor is what's keeping people away, to be honest. I feel like there's a ton of other reasons you could skip Murder Drones. Are any of them truly justified? Well, that's up for you to decide. I think that if anyone is going to skip Murder Drones, it's because it's a little too dark looking, maybe a little too violent. Maybe you're not a fan of, drones getting torn apart and split open and eaten alive and torn to pieces, stuff like that. Maybe you're not a fan of like the darker themes of the show. Bear in mind, the main villain of Murder Drones is wearing the skin of a teenage girl. So I understand if people aren't, I personally have a problem with that. I mean, I enjoy the show. I don't enjoy that aspect of it. Either way, it does its job. The show is supposed to be uncomfortable, it's supposed to be dark, and I get why people don't vibe with it. I understand the plot holes are there and people might latch onto those, but it's nice to see that this individual still enjoyed the show overall. And I do agree, it is one of the most impressive things I have ever seen on YouTube. Second only maybe to There's a Man in the Woods. If you haven't seen that, it's classic. You should absolutely look it up as soon as you're done with this video. We have about 3 more reviews for this episode, and then we will call it good because less is more, especially when it comes to, podcasts. 5 out of 10 says Joaquin Dopervernes. Wow. Moving on. I started watching this series with high expectations, but the truth is that I was a little disappointed. The only thing that stands out is the animation and the first 3 chapters. The 4 felt somewhat unnecessary. The 5 felt very filler. It is good that they explain what the Murder Drones did before, but they explained it in such a bad and boring way that I felt it was a filler chapter. Then I didn't understand anything about the 6th, and in the end, instead of feeling sad for V, I felt anything but sadness. Well, Joaquin Narkev do Perez, all I can say is you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. I don't think there's a single episode of Murder Drones that is filler, quote unquote. Every single episode, and this is one of my highest compliments of the show, every single episode builds up the characters and the plot. It might not do it in a way that you enjoy, such as with Sintessa. I understand that. I understand people's disappointment with Jay and with the pods and, humanity turning out to, yes, indeed, being completely wiped out. I understand that. I understand people having problems with elements of the plot. But as far as the show itself and its pacing, I think it does a pretty darn good job. They don't seem to waste a lot of time, if any. And again, considering the demographic it's pointed at, I think the show does a pretty darn good job, you know? Not everything can be, I don't know, what's something that's written really well. I guess the Lord of the Rings movies. Can you imagine if people were judging murder drones based on how much like Lord of the Rings it is? That would be insane, right? And yet some people do. Something akin to that. More on that later. 2 more reviews and then we're done. This next one is from Bionic Potato, amazing username. 9 out of 10, an amazing show. Spoiler, the premise of the show at first was kind of generic, where humans abuse the worker drones, but then they put a unique spin on things and have the humans accidentally kill the planet they're on, killing all life on the planet before the robots even think of starting an uprising. I also quite like their explanation of why there are vampire-like robots killing all the workers. I also think it's amazing how they got Michael Kovac, however you say his name, to voice N. He's definitely the perfect fit for the character and honestly a hilarious contrast to one of his more popular roles, Angel Dust from Hazbin Hotel. Well, I agree. I do think that N, especially now, is a million times more popular than Angel Dust is. Angel Dust had its time in the sun, or I guess the hellfire, but that time has long since passed. And I can definitely say that anything and everything that Glitch puts out is far and above more popular than anything that comes out of the Vitsy Pop machine at this point. And that's just a fact. You look at the numbers do not lie. And I do see far more people complaining about like Hell of a Boss and what's the other show called? I forget it. Hazbin Hotel. I always get them mixed up. I do see more people complaining about those shows and the lack of progression and the walking back. A lot of the same criticisms that they give to murder drones, but I don't see them shared as universally as like when it comes to murder drones. Murder drones receives a lot of the same criticisms, but they're much easier to dismantle because murder drones does what it needs to do really well in a shorter period of time. Whereas it feels like with the Hazbin Hotel stuff and the Hell of a Boss and the other things, it's all pointless. It doesn't really go anywhere. The characters don't actually change. And I get that that's kind of the point of a lot of cartoons. It's just it's like Ninja Turtles. It's just supposed to be there. There can be an overarching story, but it's very serial. It's like it's the same characters every single episode. They're doing roughly the same thing with a little bit of variety here and there. You show up because you can, not because you're trying to follow an overarching story. That's how, and you're welcome to disagree with me on this, but that's how I feel, especially when it comes to Hell of a Boss, because I was very much into that show when it first came out, and it has dropped off so hard. It's very disappointing to see. Fortunately, I don't think Murder Drones fits that whatsoever. I've gotten off on a tangent. I agree. Michael Kovac was very, very cool. He did an excellent job as N, and hopefully he continues to get work with Glitch because they just seem like a match made in heaven. Our final review comes from Isabella-Manoisiama. What a name, or username, I should say. 6 out of 10. I think it's all right. Okay. Likes. Animation. They move like stop motion horror characters. 2, subversions. I won't get into spoilers, but this show has a ton of subversion, like the dad actually being detrimental and not misunderstood. 3, the characters are the best. And those are the likes. Dislikes, comedy. The show is very meta and the comedy is not my cup of tea. 2, the dark moments just don't hit that well cause of the jokes. 3, also not bad, but sometimes the idle movements look of and not in a good way. In conclusion, it's a solid 6. I will still watch is spelled W-A-C-H because it's charming, but as an edgy show, just gives points AWY, A-W-Y, for me, dog, D-A-W-G. Interesting review, Isabella. Interesting review. I will say, I don't think I actually disagree. I don't think the characters are the best. I'm not just being contrarian. I do think the characters have very clear shortcomings when it comes to their writing. I don't, to this day, as much as I love Uzi and I love N and I love V, I think the story would have been better if it had just been N and V. I know, terrible take. That's just my personal thoughts. I think the show is clearly set up for that, and they've confirmed that that was the case originally, and then they changed it because they liked Uzi so much. I think Uzi's a fantastic character, and I don't think she's out of place at all in her own story. But at the same time, I think the show would have been better if it had just been N and V. I think it would have been more interesting. You could have still had worker drones characters like Thad and Lizzie. Maybe they could have shined a little bit more. Either way, we got what we got, and I'm satisfied with it. I do think the comedy is fine, and the dark moments definitely hit. They do hit. It sounds to me, Isabella, like you watched the pilot and that was it. I could be totally wrong. Feel free to prove me wrong. Isabella, if you're out there, feel free to comment on this video. And you, listening right now, should also comment on this video. Tell me what you thought of my takes and the takes of those kind individuals on IMDb who decided to review this show. Let me know what you want to see in the next episode. I am more than happy to keep going through all of these reviews. There's more and more added every day, and some of them are so funny. But feel free to let me know what you thought of this episode. Comment down below. Share this video with your grandma because I'm sure she'd like murder drones too. And make sure you are subscribed. Thank you so much for watching. How do you end an episode again?